I'm Orlando, this is Sarajit, and today we're going to talk to you about an emotional approach to customer satisfaction measurement. But first, I'd like you all to imagine you're taking a trip. You've got up early, you've packed your bags the night before, you've raced across town, dragging your bags with you, you've arrived at the airport, you're at check-in, and this is how you're received. How do you feel? Come on, how do we feel? Angry, I heard someone say. Angry, disgusted. Well, if you're like me, you will have felt a modicum, at least, of anger, frustration at the fact that these people behind the desk ignored me, that I was completely out of their line of sight. They were chatting amongst each other at the desk, and they didn't really know that I was there. It didn't seem like they knew that I was there. And if anyone had bothered to ask me what it was that I was feeling at that particular moment in time, I'd have told them that I felt ignored. I wished that they had talked to me, that they'd explained what was going on, the reason for the delay, and they'd apologized. So, we might have concluded from this exercise, it's important not to ignore your customer, to acknowledge them, to explain, and to apologize where necessary. Now, how would we as researchers typically have gone about measuring customer satisfaction in this moment? We would probably have put together a questionnaire. We'd have had one overall variable, like overall satisfaction, overall experience here, a 7-point scale, and we'd have probably broken down the components of the service offer into attributes. So you've got some examples here underneath. Let's just go through that together, because I think it's quite a nice exercise. So what would I have said to that? Well, I'd have said that I was extremely dissatisfied with that overall experience. It was clean and tidy. Yes, I think we'd all agree that was clean and tidy. Check-in was easy. Well, that's a difficult one because I suppose it was easy in the sense that it was, all I had to do was stand there, but it wasn't easy in the sense that it was completely trouble-free. So let's say agree a little with that. Check-in was quick. No, I don't think it was quick. Staff were courteous. Again, that's difficult, isn't it? Because, whilst they were perfectly nice by the time I got to the front of the queue, they didn't actually think to say anything to me before, while I was waiting. So, well, let's say agree a little. Staff appearance was smart and professional. Yes, I think they were very nicely turned out indeed. Was a great start to my trip? No, it wasn't, actually. So what would we do with this information? Well, we'd collect questionnaires like this from me and others, and we'd probably run some sort of regression analysis to look at the relationship between these individual attributes and the overall experience. And we'd probably conclude that the best thing for us to do was to make check-in faster and to make sure that customers perhaps wish them have a nice trip, have a nice day at the end of the experience. Now, as we all can see, that's not what the problem was. The problem was that we just wanted to be acknowledged, to be explained to be apologized to, and to, that was essentially the problem in this case. And it's a problem that really we need to think about because it's really important that customer experience is good. Research has been done to show that good customer experience relates to shareholder value, so increases in shareholder value. And if we have happy customers, they buy more. Happy customers are more likely to stay with us. Happy customers are likely to tell their friends about us. Happy customers are likely to stay with us even if we increase our prices. And if we have happy customers, then we're more likely to have bargaining power with our distributors and our suppliers. So it's important. But as researchers, we're not really doing the job properly because feelings need to be interpreted more often than not through evaluative linear scales, which is very difficult for people to do. You saw an example just a moment ago of how it's difficult to reflect the full context of the experience in a linear scale. Also, we tend to break down the service offer rather artificially, into components, long lists of attributes that really suit the internal management agenda and that are created by us researchers to try and preempt what it was, what it might be that makes people happy or unhappy. And because we've got these long lists of attributes, the sort of surveys that we can do are rather limited. We can't do them properly at the time of the transaction moment itself because they're so long. If we can do them at the transaction moment, then it often takes months to process the data and work out what's going on, by which time it's too late. Now, the other problem, of course, is because we've got long surveys, they reflect poorly on the industry, us, researchers, they reflect poorly on the business, and they result in low participation, which is obviously not ideal when you're trying to capture the full amounts of information. And all too often they result in a one-number score, a kind of satisfaction score, an average, which seeks to really serve an internal benchmarking agenda rather than tell us what it is that the problems were at the time and really give us emotional insights, the sort of feelings that were behind the specific moment. This is a really nice example, some research that was done 20 years ago now, actually, by Westbrook and Oliver, and it was at car forecourts, garage sort of showrooms, and they asked people how they felt on a traditional satisfaction measure. You can see the score, 6.25 out of 7. I'm not quite sure whether that's good or not. It looks pretty good to me, difficult to say with any certainty. But what they did also that was really interesting was that they asked people how they felt. And this is how people felt. Well, this is actually people's satisfaction scores according to how they felt. And you can see how underneath this one score, this 6.25, there's a multitude of emotion going on that we need to know about. So we need to know if they feel surprised. We need to know if they feel angry. That one overall score hides what's going on. And that's why at BrainJuicer we've been using our own emotional approach we call Face Trace that I've presented before at conference here, based on the work of psychologist Paul Ekman. It's a pictorial and intuitive scale that's very quick to do, based on his work, the Universal 7 Emotions. And we ask people in the transaction moment, how did you feel? Well, how do you feel, about your visit today? How intensely do you feel it, and why do you feel it? Because we want to know the full context and understand why people are feeling the way they do at that moment. So together with HSBC, we conducted a pilot that you could imagine might go across several different, in the future, across several different transaction channels. You can think of it at an ATM, you can think of it online, you can think of it in branch, at a touch screen, on an iPad. Because we're not actually evaluating components of the service, we're just asking people how they feel. And you can measure the differences in the way people are feeling across all these different channels. So the pilot was conducted in southeast England, 6 branches, at the end of last year, and we installed touchscreens in the branches and asked people, we got recruiters to stop people as they'd finished their transaction, take them over to the touchscreen, do a 2-minute survey, and that's all it took, ask them how they felt. And then we transmitted this information back via 3G to our servers. We knew, HSBC knew in real time what was going on in their branches, their 6 branches, how people were feeling across those 6 branches. So I'm just going to show you a quick video to give you a sense of what this looked like in the branches themselves.
Hello, I'm Orlando. I'm Innovation Director for a market research company called BrainJuicer. I'd like to share with you today a new piece of technology that we've been trialling in HSBC branches. Rather than asking customers hundreds of questions about all aspects of their visit, we ask them just one key question. How do you feel about your visit today? Customers click on the face that reflects how they feel. They then tell us the extent of that feeling and what it was about their visit that made them feel that way. This information is then passed instantly to management so that they know what's happening here in the branch and can even step in to help with any problems if they need to. It helps to monitor the impact of any changes to the branch, such as a new machine that might be here or new approaches to customer service. It's easy and fun for customers to do, it's intuitive for HSBC staff and employees. It will help to improve the relationship between HSBC and its customers and ultimately those customers' in-branch experience.
So what did we find from this work? Well, we found across the 2,600 or so responses, those transaction moments, those emotional moments, we found this. This is the sort of result of all of those interviews. You can see the proportion of people feeling each emotion, and I'm pleased to report that 2/3 of people actually felt very happy when at the end of their transaction moment. But there were a few negative emotions as well. At the top of the bar there, you can see some of the sort of contempt and disgust and so on. So what drove happiness? Well, what drove happiness, it seems, is an extremely warm personal transaction experience. So people who had the highest levels of happiness, highest intensity levels of happiness, actually were talking about the people in the branch by their first name. I've just highlighted a couple of examples here. The service I received from Alison is getting better by the day. She's great. Completely excelled in all requirements. Well done, John. And the people who were naming people by their first names were giving highest levels of happiness in terms of their intensity. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got people who are angry. And you can see here the sorts of comments that are coming through. There's only one paying in notes and one statement machine for such a large, busy branch. There's always an ATM machine not working, and there's never a sign on it to tell you so. It's wasting your time. Because we've been waiting for 25 minutes just for a change of name form. You can almost hear the anger and frustration in their voices. And this, you can imagine how helpful this is for branch managers on the ground. If they know that people just the other side of the cashier's desk are angry, that they're out there and there are people who are angry, and they know it in real time, they can go out there and sort the problem out. And these sorts of comments are extremely helpful in providing actionable improvements for managers. It empowers the branch managers to do what they need to. This is the response in one branch across the whole period of the pilot. And you can see that there was a problem in week 4, week 5, higher levels of neutrality, happiness dropping, disgust increasing. And we know that in week 4, there were staff shortages. And lengthy queues at self-service machines started to build up as a consequence. And you can see here the comment that really pretty much refers back to our earlier example at the airport. Nobody offered to help, just carried on without saying, "Be with you in a moment." And you can see the sorts of things that we could be doing to improve upon that. You can see in week 5 that there was a half-term school holiday, and that poor service was seen as a result because there were so many more people in the branch. Now, if branch managers know this sort of thing is going on, if they know that this impacts on emotional response, they can plan for it. They can look ahead to next year, and they can make sure that staff are in place to cope with it. The other thing we could do was look across the different branches according to region. And in fact, what we found was that the outer the branches outside London had a different response from the branches inside London. They were high levels of happiness outside London. When you get closer in to the sort of commuter belt, happiness dropped a little and the negative emotions start to appear. And then when you come into central London, you can see that happiness drops off again, and you've got more negative emotions appearing as well. So if we know that people feel differently in different geographies, we can start to think about how we set up the branches differently, how we look at different processes and systems to make sure that people are feeling good in those locations, as good as they are elsewhere. 2 other things that we found that were really fascinating. One was that happiness drops off at lunchtime. Happiness drops off at lunchtime. So after about 11:30, 12 o'clock, people are feeling less happy in branch. So we know that it's important to try and maximize happiness in the afternoon. Well, how do we do it? Well, we might look at ways of keeping the branch fresh and tidy. And also, we need to make sure that we don't pull frontline service staff back from the cashier's desk to do administration at the back of the branch. So we need to keep people, make sure that we know how to keep happiness levels up. And maybe there's even a pay packet effect towards the end of the month. Look here at how happiness and intensity of emotion spikes towards the 27th, 28th of October. Typically, we're paid at the end of the month in the UK. Interesting, isn't it? Perhaps we can schedule sales appointments with our customers at the right time of the month, so we know when they're going to be more happy than, generally speaking. We know not to do it on the 29th and 30th of October. They're very bad days. And we know also that, campaigns, communications can be planned around this sort of thing. So with that, I'm just going to pass over to Sarajit to give you some reflections on what he thought the experience was like.
Thanks, Orlando. He's left me a pecha kucha in 2 minutes. Just to give you a brief background in terms of the business context, I think that's really important. Customer experience is now a board agenda for HSBC because we've discovered that more important than advertising, because we already have a strong brand, our customer experience is not up to scratch. And therefore, globally, there is a massive initiative to actually address this gap that we have. When we raised it at the board, we did a little bit of research to find the various definitions that are floating around in the space about customer experience. And we have coined our own definition based on our category, which is the emotional outcome of all the interactions that customers have with the bank. It's a simple one-line definition which every member of staff, whether they are frontline customer-facing or back office or process or IT or whoever it is, understands what it means to focus on customer experience. That definition really kind of led us to explore what measures we could use to further this agenda. And we discovered that we had been running brand trackers on customer satisfaction, using satisfaction as a measure, and also a measure of brand recommendation. But what we found from various staff members was it was not clear enough for them to act on that result. So we were working at that time with Brain Juicer on Face Trace, and we said, why not we try Face Trace in a real live branch to see what kind of information we get. So some of the responses that we got from branch managers are here on the slide, and it was absolutely fascinating because what we learned was that it actually drove pride in the frontline staff because of the outcome that the customer feedback was driving. They did not want customers to go back from the branch, which they treated like their home, feeling down, low, horrid, angry, disappointed, all those negative emotions. So what we found was during the period of the exercise, the staff were actually rejigging the way they worked on their own. And we discovered they actually did not want a service manual. And that was fascinating, and it is fantastic, because if you think about extrapolating this model across the 86 countries that we operate in, giving each one an operating manual is going to be an absolute nightmare. So what you've done is you've used an outcome measure like emotion to actually drive pride in the people who are serving customers to overcome the biggest challenge to customer experience, which is process. Process actually prevents frontline staff from delivering a great customer experience. So we have now people on the front line trying to deliver great experience. And when you have the analytics coming through, you've got process people at the back room who are trying to improve and support their frontline colleagues, all off the same measure, off the same understanding of the data, which was really the big breakthrough for us. So essentially, some practical benefits. It helped us support the customer experience management agenda. It helped us improve process across markets through a common metric. We do better root cause analysis today, and the branch manager actually takes charge of the customer experience agenda at HSBC.
And we're actually trying it in Brazil.
Yeah, and we're now trialing this in Brazil to see how it kind of translates across markets.
So just to summarize the implications of this new approach, it reveals how customers feel rather than providing you with a sort of single satisfaction measure. It measures performance and diagnoses problems all at once in one piece of research. It's a human and intuitive framework that everyone, as Sarajit was saying, can understand throughout the business and throughout the branches, and it reveals problems in real time that can be actioned. Causal relationships are identified immediately, so we know what's going wrong, and we know exactly how to prioritize the problems and to put them right very quickly. And because it's in the transaction moment, it's faster and it's fresher and it's better feedback. And we can compare the results across all geographies, transaction types, customer types, and so on. It's intuitive, and it's also fun for customers to do, and it reflects well on the business. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.